The room is thick with cigar smoke and the scent of aged whiskey. Louisville, Kentucky, 1960. 11 white men in tailored suits sit around a mahogany table, their faces shadowed by the low amber light of crystal chandeliers. They are millionaires, old money, southern money, the kind of wealth that built empires on tobacco fields and bourbon distilleries. And tonight, they're about to make a decision that will change the course of history. At the head of the table sits an 18-year-old black kid from the West End. Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. He's just returned from Rome with an Olympic gold medal hanging around his neck, and he's wearing the only suit he owns, a hand-me-down that's slightly too big in the shoulders. His hands rest on his knees, steady despite the weight of a dozen eyes measuring him, calculating his worth like a prized racehorse. What these men are about to propose sounds like a dream. What they ask for in return will leave you speechless. One of the men clears his throat. His name is William Faversham Jr., a patrician with silver hair and the kind of voice that commands boardrooms. He leans forward, fingers steepled, and speaks with the practiced patience of someone used to being obeyed. "Son," he begins, "we've been watching you. We see potential." The word hangs in the air like bait on a hook. Young Cassius doesn't blink. His jaw is set, his eyes bright with the kind of hunger only poverty can sharpen. He's been training since he was 12 years old in a Columbia gym basement, dreaming of a future that seemed as distant as the stars. Now that future is sitting across from him in $1,000 suits, offering him a way out. But there's always a price. There's always a price. To understand what happens next, you need to know what these 11 men represent. They call themselves the Louisville Sponsoring Group. Sounds innocent enough, doesn't it? But in 1960 Louisville, a city still bleeding from the wounds of segregation, these men hold power that transcends money. They control banks, newspapers, distilleries, and political machines. When they speak, governors listen. When they invest, fortunes are made. And they want to invest in Cassius Clay. Not out of charity, not out of some enlightened sense of racial justice. They see a gold mine wrapped in brown skin and cocky charisma. They see a ticket to riches beyond their already considerable wealth. But most importantly, they see an opportunity to control the most electrifying athlete to ever emerge from their city. The question burning in that smoke-filled room is simple. What will it cost him? Faversham slides a contract across the table. The paper whispers against polished wood. Young Cassius picks it up with hands that have broken ribs and shattered jaws. His eyes scan the legal language, words that might as well be written in Latin for all the formal education he's had. "We're prepared to offer you a 6-year contract," another man explains. His name is Archibald Foster, owner of a bourbon empire. "We'll pay you a monthly stipend, cover all your training expenses, get you the best trainers, the best sparring partners, the best facilities money can buy." It sounds too good to be true. Because it is. "We'll take 50% of your earnings," Foster continues, his tone as smooth as his product. "For the first 2 years, then it drops to 40%, then 30%. By the end of 6 years, you'll be your own man." 50%, half of everything he earns. Half of every purse, every endorsement, every opportunity that comes from his sweat and blood and sacrifice. But here's what nobody in that room is saying out loud. In 1960, a young black boxer from Louisville has exactly 2 options. He can sign with these men, or he can fight in smoky clubs for pocket change while working a day job to survive. The path to championship gold doesn't exist for someone like him without money, connections, and white approval. The system is rigged. These men know it, and they're counting on Cassius knowing it too. Young Cassius looks up from the contract. His expression is unreadable. The men wait, confident in the inevitable outcome. After all, what choice does he really have? And then Cassius does something unexpected. He smiles. Not a grateful smile, not a humble smile. A smile that carries the weight of something these men don't yet recognize: certainty, unshakable, audacious certainty. "I'll sign," he says, his voice strong and clear, "but I got some conditions of my own." The room shifts. The millionaires exchange glances. Conditions? This kid, This teenage black boxer from the projects wants to negotiate with them. Faversham's eyebrow arches. "We're listening." Cassius leans forward. "I want it in writing that you can't tell me what to say, you can't control my words, you can't make me be quiet when I got something to say." Silence crashes through the room like a punch nobody saw coming. One of the men, Thomas Hogan, a construction magnate, actually laughs. It's a condescending sound, the kind that suggests a child has said something amusing but foolish. "Son, we're not interested in controlling what you say. We are interested in your fists, not your mouth." But Cassius doesn't laugh back. His gaze is steel. "I also want to choose my own trainer, Angelo Dundee, nobody else." Another millionaire interjects. "We were thinking someone with more." "Angelo Dundee," Cassius repeats, his voice harder now, "or there's no deal." The men are no longer smiling. This isn't going according to plan. They came here to buy a fighter, to mold him into their image of what a champion should be: quiet, grateful, controlled. Instead, they're facing someone who already knows his worth. But they need him more than they're willing to admit. They can see the same thing the rest of the world will soon see. This kid is going to be the greatest boxer who ever lived, and they want their names attached to that greatness. So they agree, they put it in writing. Cassius can speak freely. He can choose his trainer. He signs the contract with a flourish, his signature bold and defiant across the bottom of the page. What nobody in that room understands yet is that Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. has just outmaneuvered 11 of the shrewdest businessmen in Kentucky. He's taken their money, their connections, their resources, and he's kept his soul. But here's where the story takes a turn that will destroy everything you think you know about this arrangement. The years pass. Cassius, who will soon proclaim himself Muhammad Ali, rises like a supernova. He defeats Sonny Liston. He becomes heavyweight champion of the world. He converts to Islam and changes his name, defying not just boxing convention, but the entire social order of 1960s America. He refuses to be drafted into the Vietnam War, sacrificing his title, his income, and his freedom. Through it all, the Louisville sponsoring group watches their investment become the most controversial athlete on the planet. And they stay silent. They don't demand he change his name back. They don't pressure him to support the war. They don't try to control the very thing they promised they wouldn't touch: his voice. Why? Because something unexpected happened in those smoke-filled meetings over the years. Something that none of those 11 white millionaires could have predicted when they first sat across from an 18-year-old kid in an oversized suit. They started to respect him. 1967, a hotel room in Chicago. Muhammad Ali, stripped of his title, facing 5 years in prison, banned from boxing, sits across from William Faversham Jr. The millionaire is older now, his silver hair turned white, his face lined with years of watching his investment become a symbol of resistance. The contract is up for renewal. Ali's legal bills are mounting. He hasn't fought in months, and the money is running out. Faversham has the leverage now. He could renegotiate, could demand a larger percentage, could enforce clauses that would finally muzzle the man who has become too loud, too defiant, too dangerous to white America's comfortable narrative. Instead, Faversham does something that will shock you to your core. He slides a new contract across the table. Ali picks it up, expecting the worst. The percentage, 0. Ali's eyes widen. He reads it again, certain he's misunderstood. But there it is, in black and white. The Louisville sponsoring group is terminating their financial claim on Muhammad Ali's earnings, effective immediately. They're walking away from millions of dollars in future purses, from endorsements, from everything they invested in creating. Why? Ali asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Faversham meets his gaze. In his eyes, there's something Ali has never seen before from these men: genuine admiration. "Because," Faversham says slowly, choosing each word with care, "you taught us something we didn't know we needed to learn." The old millionaire stands, walks to the window, looks out at the Chicago skyline. When he speaks again, his voice carries the weight of confession. We thought we were buying a fighter. We thought we could package you, profit from you, and move on to the next investment. We thought we understood the game. He turns back to Ali. But you changed the rules. You showed us that a man's worth isn't measured in percentages and purses. You stood up when everyone told you to sit down. You spoke truth when silence would have made you rich. You sacrificed everything for principle. Faversham's voice cracks, just slightly. My son is in Vietnam right now. He didn't want to go. He went because I told him it was his duty, that real men don't run from their country's call. And every night, I pray he comes home alive, and I wonder, was I wrong? Was I asking him to die for something that isn't worth his life? The room is silent, except for the distant sound of Chicago traffic. You had the courage to ask that question out loud, Mohammed. You paid the price for it, and we'll be damned if we're going to profit from your courage while you're bleeding for it. But the story doesn't end there. Because 3 months later, a check arrives at Ali's home. It's from the Louisville sponsoring group. Not a small check, not symbolic. It's for $50,000, roughly $500,000 in today's money. The memo line reads, Legal Defense Fund, no repayment required. Ali stares at it for a long time. His wife, Belinda, reads the letter that came with it. It's signed by all 11 members of the group. The message is simple. We may not agree with all your choices, but we believe in your right to make them. This is not charity. This is recognition that we owe you far more than you ever owed us. Over the next 3 years, as Ali fights his legal battle all the way to the Supreme Court, the Louisville sponsoring group quietly funds his defense. They don't hold press conferences. They don't seek credit. They don't demand Ali temper his message or soften his stance. They simply stand behind the man whose voice they promised never to control. And here's the part that will absolutely wreck you. In 1970, when the Supreme Court overturns Ali's conviction and he's finally free to fight again, he signs a new deal with different promoters. He's back on top of the world. The Louisville sponsoring group could have demanded recognition, could have leveraged their support for a piece of his comeback fortune. Instead, they send one final letter. Ali opens it in his training camp, surrounded by the controlled chaos of jump ropes and speed bags and shouted encouragement. Inside is a single page, handwritten by William Faversham Jr. Mohammed. We entered into business with Cassius Clay, a talented young fighter we thought we could shape and profit from. We exit having known Muhammad Ali, a man who shaped us and profited our souls. You asked us for freedom to speak. We gave it reluctantly, thinking it a small concession. You taught us it was the only thing that mattered. We are 11 old white men from Kentucky who thought we knew the world. You were a black kid from Louisville who showed us we knew nothing. Thank you for the education. It was worth every penny we didn't make. Go win back your title, not for us, for every person who ever needed to see what courage looks like. With respect and gratitude. The Louisville sponsoring group. Ali reads it 3 times. His hands, those legendary hands that have broken men and made history, shake slightly as he folds the letter and tucks it into his pocket. Everything okay, champ? Angelo Dundee asks from across the gym. Ali nods, unable to speak past the emotion lodged in his throat. He thinks about that smoke-filled room 12 years ago, about 11 men who wanted to own him, about how they ended up freeing themselves instead. The final twist in this story came decades later. 1996, Atlanta Olympics. Muhammad Ali, now battling Parkinson's disease, his hands trembling with a different kind of shake, stands before the world to light the Olympic torch. It's a moment of redemption, of recognition, of a nation finally acknowledging the man they once tried to destroy. In the crowd, scattered among thousands of spectators, sit 7 of the original 11 Louisville sponsoring group members. 4 have passed away. The remaining 7 are in their 80s and 90s now, old men who could easily watch from the comfort of their homes. But they're here. They traveled to Atlanta specifically for this moment. When Ali's shaking hand lifts that torch, when the flame ignites and the crowd erupts in recognition of what this symbol means, the athlete who lost everything and gained immortality, these 7 old millionaires stand and applaud with tears streaming down their weathered faces. A reporter notices them later, asks why they're crying. One of them, Archibald Foster's son, now running the family bourbon empire, wipes his eyes and says something profound. "We thought we were his sponsors. Turns out he was ours. He sponsored our education in dignity, in courage, in what it means to be truly free. We paid him money. He paid us back in lessons we'll carry to our grave." So here's what really happened when 11 white millionaires funded Muhammad Ali's career. They asked for 50% of his earnings. He demanded 100% of his voice. They thought they were buying a fighter. He taught them how to be human. They expected gratitude and obedience. He gave them transformation and truth. They tried to own him. He freed them instead. And in the end, what they asked for in return, what they really asked for once they understood the game, was forgiveness for ever thinking they could put a price tag on greatness. Muhammad Ali gave it to them, not because they deserved it, but because that's who he was. He didn't just defeat opponents in the ring. He defeated the very system that created men who thought they could buy and sell human potential. And he did it not with anger or vengeance, but with unwavering commitment to being himself, no matter the cost. The Louisville sponsoring group came to that smoke-filled room in 1960, believing they held all the power. They left having discovered that real power can't be bought or sold or controlled. It can only be witnessed, respected, and if you're lucky, if you're very lucky, it might just set you free too. That's the story the headlines never told. That's the truth behind the transaction that launched the greatest career in sports history. 11 white millionaires gave a black teenager money and connections. He gave them back their humanity. And that, my friends, is a return on investment you can't calculate in percentages.